I believe that we're approaching one of the biggest revolutions in human history that will lead to an explosion in human potential and ability that will literally seem like magic in the way that smartphones today seem like magic to people from 100 years ago. One of the interesting things about revolutions is how small some of the changes were at the start, but how those small changes blossomed into the entirely new world that we're able to witness today. You can see this in the art world by comparing any of the art before the Renaissance to any of the art during and after the Renaissance. The change is pretty drastic, and art has really never been the same since. With something like the printing press, we had the widespread distribution of astronomy, geography, and other sciences that were able to benefit people and nations all across the world. Along with this, we had the commercial revolution, where knowledge and resources that might not have been available in your homeland were now able to be acquired and exchanged through free trade and free exchange. This led to mutual benefit between both parties. Then there's the Industrial Revolution, automation, freeing up more time for more productive work. We have workplace safety, where machines are able to do work that humans can't do, or machines can do more safely than humans. The division of labor, where workflows become more modular, and one company can begin to own one segment of an assembly line, making our world more modular. And then finally, we have the software revolution, a world of permissionless creation, where anybody with an internet connection can start their own podcast, their own YouTube channel, start their own business, or provide their labor to anyone, anywhere across the world. This now provides us a world that's literally always on at a global scale. But the next revolution, which I believe has already kind of started at a very primitive level, is the revolution in human potential. Take something like Neuralink, a brain to computer interface. We're now at a point where we can map a brain signal to a robot or a computer, and it actually does something based off of that input. And it's not so much that it's doing something, but it's the fact that it's doing something that we intend for it to do and that it's doing it with accuracy. Now, I'm optimistic that one day we'll have brain to brain interfaces, meaning we'll have the ability to communicate without words. The human emotions of frustration, anxiety, depression, things that are so hard to communicate with words, will be able to be communicated without words. You'll know what your family members and friends are trying to communicate to you without the need for words. And funnily enough, this world without any words, with just intangible brain signals being sent from one another, will actually be a world where we understand and are able to relate to other people more than we ever could in a world with words. Now, it might be hard to understand why I believe something like this is going to lead to a revolution in human potential and ability, so let me give you an example. I'm pretty good at doing handstands. Words describing what a handstand feels like are very abstract, but a Neuralink equivalent of feeling a handstand gives you a memory, even if it's a false one, of the direction your mind and body needs to pursue to successfully do a handstand. If this sounds weird, imagine trying to cook a complex dessert from a recipe in a cookbook where you're told to mix the batter until a certain creamy, velvety texture is reached. Now compare that to watching a YouTube video where you get to see what the creamy texture actually looks like as they dip a spatula into it, lift it up, and let the batter slide off the spatula. The difference is night and day, and it's a change in literally one sense: sight. Now, going back to my handstand example, if you could learn through Neuralink instead of me verbally and even physically coaching you, you get to add in all of the subtleties, all of the sensations in your fingers, your hands, your arms, your core, your legs, all of these subtleties that can be so hard to convey through words, even if you're getting one-on-one coaching. Some of these small details are literally so small that you don't really understand them and truly appreciate them until you can finally do a handstand. I believe that this alone will revolutionize human potential. A skill that once used to take months to learn will now take weeks, if not even days, to learn in a world where we can interface directly with one another's brains. But let me be clear that I don't think we're going to suddenly have Renaissance men or freak athletes running around a year or two after brain to brain interfaces become a thing. It won't be like the Matrix where you download a skill like handstands in 5 minutes and suddenly you're an expert. But it will allow you to better understand and feel what it's like to do a handstand. I think it's best to compare what this reality might look like to something like in an apprenticeship. If I decided to start learning how to paint or become an animator, it might take me 10 years to become a master of the craft. If I apprentice under a master, I could accelerate that process and maybe it'd only take me 6 or 7 years. With brain to brain interfaces, the work still needs to be done, just like taking steroids doesn't magically turn you into Mr. Olympia. You still have to lift weights like a madman. I don't believe brain to brain interfaces are going to be any different. You're still going to have to put in the work, it's just that the time frame to proficiency is drastically reduced. What will be interesting is to see what this future world ends up looking like. Unless we find a way to upload these skills and allow people to stream them at will, are we going to have a world where there's a skill inequality gap in the same way that there's an income inequality gap that is one of the bigger concerns of today? Someone like Jeff Bezos might be able to fork over $1 million to Tom Brady for access to his football throwing IQ, but what about the average person? Will they feel left out in a world where Tom Brady is charging a premium for access to his brain? Making a prediction like this feels like making a prediction as to what the price of Bitcoin or Ethereum will be in 6 months, but what the hell? I definitely think the future could look like that, but honestly, I don't believe it's all that different from the world that we're living in today. It's just going to take on a different form. Highly successful people share all the time. Conor McGregor and other athletes have apps that you can download for getting into better shape. Many people download these apps, many people even buy subscriptions to these apps. But how many actually follow through and get results? Once again, there aren't any shortcuts, even if the road to success is laid out right in front of you. Even if you could link up to Conor McGregor's brain, would you really be that much more motivated to work out if you knew that your road to world class striking was cut from 10 years to 5? The human revolution will happen, but the masses will keep complaining. Those people are born with it. They're more gifted for brain to brain interfacing and learning. The same old excuses will still remain. Meanwhile, the discipline will put in the work and learn more skills in one lifetime than we ever thought was possible, becoming Renaissance men in the process.